But to get things started, we're going to start, as always, with the big story. And that is, of course, the Maryland men's lacrosse team winning the national championship. They beat Cornell in the national title game to finish 18-0, the first time there's ever been an 18-0 national champion. NCAA record for wins in an undefeated season. And, of course, for the program, their fourth national title of all time. You look at the most wins ever for an undefeated team. Nobody in the history of the sport has more than what the Terps just did this past year. And so we are thrilled to bring in their head coach, John Tillman, who joins us now. John, for the rest of time, you and your team will be in the discussion for the greatest lacrosse team ever. Has that sunk in yet?
It really hasn't. You know, when you're in the midst of it, you're just trying to, again, we have a saying around here that Bud Mearmore started in the 70s, just be the best. And it's just try to be the best person, student, player you can be every day. And, you know, that's really, I think, any coach that goes into a season, you're just trying to be the best version of yourself, maximize what you have, and see what happens. You know, most seasons, you know, you feel like it's pretty darn hard with the schedule we play to go undefeated. So that was really not anything we talked about. We just figure we go through the year. There'll be a day where the other team's just going to outplay us, and that's okay. You know, we always have a conference tournament to fall back on, and you know, through the rigors of the year, you'll learn a lot about yourself. So the fact that the guys, you know, were able to win every game, just a credit to those kids, how selfless they were, the coaches, and obviously our administration's support.
Let's go to the title game. Cornell cuts the deficit to 2 with 35 seconds left. What's running through your head?
I thought we were in good spot, you know, and only because you had Luke Weirman, who was a first-team All-American face-off guy, and doing the numbers. You know, you felt like they'd have to score 2 goals in 34 seconds. And that would be hard, even if we're on the other side with Luke. That's still a daunting task. So you're kind of playing against the clock, figuring out, all right, how can we just at least keep the ball loose? And then if we can gain possession, which Luke, you know, was able to do, he actually didn't win the faceoff, but he scrapped for it, which he did an awesome job of all game, and then eventually got it. And then once we got it, you knew, again, that would put us in a pretty good spot. So always concerned, always thinking worst case scenario. And a team like Cornell that is terrific, you've got to be ready. But again, I had a lot of confidence in those guys and just needed to hang on. That semifinal took a lot out of us. The week before, Virginia game took a lot out of us. We didn't get back. I didn't get back to my house the week before until 5 a.m. on Monday, you know, from Ohio. So we had a really tough road. They did us no favors in terms of our journey, but it is the NCAA tournament, so we expect it to be hard. And again, all credit to our players and staff for what they did, just really grinded.
And you said afterwards that was the hardest game you had all year. When during the game did that kind of hit you?
Well, going into it, watching how well they were playing, you knew it was going to be a battle. And, you know, I went to Cornell and, you know, obviously very fond of that place. And I just know their culture. You know, they're relentless, they're unselfish, they're tough, they're competitive, and they had a lot of talent on that field. So we knew it would be tough. You know, even when we were up in the third quarter, I could sense our guys were running out of gas. And again, no, you know, not faulting our guys, not being critical. We took some injuries on Saturday, so we were a little bit short-manned. Our guys gave great effort, really the last 2 games going into it. So we just had to figure out how do we survive those last 10 minutes or so. And we had some self-inflicted wounds, but to be honest, a lot of that comes from mental fatigue and physical fatigue and playing a great team like Cornell.
All right, off the field now, you have a great program. You got a school with a ton of fun alums. Give me an example, someone you've heard from since winning the title. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, our alums are great. You know, we had so many of them that were up there, which was awesome to see them in the stands and also just see them after the game at the tailgates and see some of the things they posted. So heard from a lot of them, and we stay connected with a lot of those guys. They're a big part of our program. They support us so well. So I don't know if there's anybody that is in particular. I know being up there, Scott Van Pelt from ESPN has been really tight with our team. He Zoomed with us the last few years, especially during COVID when we were going through tough times. So to have Scott up there and in person, he flew up just for the game and then be there after, and our guys could see him. He's probably the guy that, was super cool for our guys because they feel so connected with him, and they see him on TV every night on SportsCenter. He's a devoted and he's an unapologetic Terp fan, and we love him for that, and we're thankful for that.
Yeah, he's a big fan of his alma mater. I'll say that's for sure.
No, and having President Pines there, obviously, and our AD Damon Evans and his staff all up there meant a lot to us. Just shows you how important lacrosse is here, what it means to the state, our school, and our alums. There's no place like it in the sport. And again, so for us to be on the biggest stage and obviously get a big win and just have everybody in our state enjoy it, it's something that we feel a sense of pride for, and just realize anytime we're out there, they're with us.
John, what was your challenge this year as a head coach?
It's hard to just pick one thing. There's so many challenges, but that's what you love about the job. Again, going back to that saying, be the best. If we're going to try to get these kids to be the best students and people and players, in those areas, that's a big challenge to try to make sure that you keep that bar up for each guy. And I think we had a very veteran group coming back. We were very fortunate that a couple guys that had the opportunity to use their fifth year came back. So I think a big part of it for this year was we had great leadership, trusting those guys. So I'm not saying that's a challenge, but letting those guys lead, and because we have great faith and trust in them. But I think one of the challenges that was unique is with an older team, more wasn't more. We were at times, we needed to back off and make sure they were healthy. The kids give a lot here. They're very competitive. They're hard workers. So at times realizing that they may not say it, but they were a little tired or they were a little dinged up, maybe giving them a day off or practicing less and making sure that we save them from themselves, because they're not big complainers. They want to be pushed and challenged. And sometimes you have to kind of look at them, read the body language. And if they do say, hey, coach, we're a little tired, you got to trust them and back off. So I think that was one of the unique things. But it was such a selfless group. And it was such a joy to be around them. What they were doing in the classroom, what they were doing in the community, what they were doing to represent our school. Whether we went 18-0 or we went, 5-7 in the regular season, I was going to be proud of this group in terms of who they were and how they represented us, because that's really at the heart of what we're doing here, is trying to get them to be the best version of themselves and have a group that everybody around here can be proud of, not just because we're winning games, but so much more.
Well, and that's the thing. There are so many guys we could single out individually, right? Anthony's had a hat trick 5 of the last 6 games. Logan wins the most outstanding player. Wisnauskas sets the record for Maryland points in a single season, going triple digits. But let me ask you kind of more of a big picture thing. How long are you going to allow yourself to enjoy this and to sit in it and to appreciate the moment?
I think you go in and out of that. You're super busy. The last month has been a blur. Certainly Saturday was the craziest day. I've been doing this a long time, and we knew the weather was coming through on Saturday, and we bring the team over, and we know there's a threat of lightning and thunder. So we're over there, and all of a sudden, we get a delay, and people start saying this thing could be around till 6 o'clock. And so we decided to go back to the hotel, and that was a different challenge for our guys, just going back, and we fed them. Our director of ops, Clara Hollander, does an awesome job. She got some food for the guys, and our hotel people really took care of us. And so we asked them just to kind of go back to rooms and relax a little bit. And then we had to reset. But winning that game, Princeton's a terrific team, and we got some guys dinged up. We weren't sure who was going to play on Monday. We lost a couple guys that game, and then to get back at about 11 or 12, it was basically at that point, feed them, get them to bed, and then start our prep the next day. And it just wasn't a lot of time for us to sit back and do anything but focus on trying to prep our guys. So in those 3 nights, probably about 12 hours of sleep. And then since then, it's been a whirlwind, but a good situation to be in. It's just a little crazy. So, today's our day of our last meeting together, which is always sad. Obviously, we're happy we won, but you've been with these guys 9 months, and it's hard not to get attached to them a little bit. They're fun to be around. They're a great group. But we're basically saying goodbye today because kids have internships. They got to go home. So it is sad to a certain extent because we love them so much and they love being around each other so much. So going to enjoy the last few hours together with everybody. And again, just remind them how much we love them and care about them and how proud we are. And then start looking forward.
John Tillman, head coach of the national champion Terps. Congratulations, and thanks so much for your time, man.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Sorry, it's a little crazy here, but appreciate all you do, and thanks for your coverage of lacrosse and all our programs here at Maryland.
Erik, what was the best part of the entire celebration afterwards?
Well, hey, Mike, thanks for having me. The entire celebration was the best part. That's all you chase as a coach is those celebratory moments for the kids. It's all parents know what Christmas morning is like, and that's what it's like. It's like, it's like watching those kids with ear-to-ear grins and those genuine smiles, and there's nothing better.
Okay, because I had a particular moment of the celebration that as a viewer, I liked more than anything else, and that was when you were in the middle of chatting with our Dana Hughes, having a lovely discussion, and all of a sudden you got ambushed, and I assume you were rather sticky afterwards.
Yeah, I haven't seen this yet, but Yep. That was definitely one of the highlights for me personally, and of course, is Tito Flores and Joey Velasquez. They're always messing with me, but I love it. It's a privilege to get dumped with Gatorade.
So that's never happened to me. I've never been dumped on Gatorade. I mean, I'm literally curious. Are you sticky the whole rest of the night?
Absolutely. Yep. in the best way possible.
By the way, I mean, I don't want to make a big deal out of this, but you were in the middle of answering Danon, and I'm not calling it rude. I'm just saying, you didn't really finish your answer, so if you have anything you'd like to add on for Danon if he's watching here.
No offense to Danon, but I don't even remember what we were talking about.
I can tell you, as someone who was broadcasting the games this weekend, or at least doing the studio in between and afterwards, they were long days and long nights and then early into the morning, but I was just broadcasting. What was it like for you guys to be a part of a tournament that went so long into the day and into the morning?
I think our guys loved it. They genuinely rallied behind it. Anything that could be a little bit weird or different, whether it be a condensed schedule or playing at 2 in the morning, benefited us. And we knew what we had to do setting out at the beginning of the week. We knew our season was complete unless we somehow found a way to hoist that trophy. And our guys embraced the whole idea of treating each game like it was the only game of the tournament. And if that meant that game was a 2 a.m. game, they loved it. And they had a lot of fun playing this tournament, and it was so fun to watch them.
When those Wednesday games were canceled, I mean, were you as coaches given an opportunity to change the schedule at all? Was there any discussion at all about that?
We did have a long meeting with Katie and the upper brass of the Big Ten and the schedulers, and we did come up with a scenario if Thursday was canceled of going to single elimination. We did look through all the possible if-then scenarios. If we did play on Thursday with a double elimination tournament, and if we had a delayed start on Thursday because there was still rain in the area. But yeah, they were very thorough. They did a hell of a job making sure the format of that tournament would flow without having to completely disrupt the double elimination tournament. And obviously we won it, so I think it was great. But I thought they did a great job regardless of making sure that every team that was involved got at least 2 games to play.
And one more sort of off the field thing. I got to tell you, the way you handled the Willie Weiss ejection was so appropriate. It was such an example of leadership. You didn't blame anyone. You didn't pretend it didn't happen. And you also didn't dwell on it. You said, we made a mistake. It's not part of our program. And you moved on. And Erik, I assume that couldn't have been easy because it's not like you had days to prepare for something like that.
No, it happened, and it happened. And when mistakes happen, I think that's a lesson for everybody. You just got to admit you made a mistake and own it, and point the thumb. There was no fingers to point in that scenario. We screwed up, and we apologize for it, and it will never happen again. And Willie has a stiff penalty with a 4-game suspension, but I love Willie Weiss. He's meant so much to our program, and I don't love him any less because he made a mistake. And that's what we'll do. We'll suffer the consequences and we'll move on.
Well, I thought it was a perfect example of leadership. So kudos for being a grown-up when something like that happened, which sometimes we don't always see. That being said, your pitching staff, man, were they good this week. I mean, I don't need to tell you, you came into the tournament with the 2nd worst ERA as a team. Sure didn't look like it this past week, Erik. How come?
Mindset shift, maybe, simplification. We got away from all the fancy tech and gadgets and radars and maybe the things that were complicating our thought process and just made our thoughts very singular about competing. And if we were thinking about our pitches, it was just about the location of them, and that's it. And just a lot of trust back to our preparation and whatever the case may be. But I also like the way we did it in terms of treating it like the game we were playing was the only game of the tournament, and we were going to throw the kitchen sink at them if we had to, even if it meant throwing 3 weekend starters in 1 game. And our pitching staff and our players rallied behind that. And our pitchers that did pitch, because we only threw 8 or 9 pitchers in the whole tournament, we had guys that were pitching on short rest and were doing some things they hadn't done all season. And so all the credit goes to those guys. It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to do it. And there were pitchers on our team on Sunday that had, in the championship game against Rutgers, Cam Weston, Connor O'Halloran, these guys just pitched like in the previous game of the doubleheader, begging to go back in there and pitch again. And, at some point you did have to be the adult in the situation and say, no, that's not smart for the safety of your arm. But I also appreciated the fact that all these pitchers were coming up to the coaches saying, I got an inning for you. We can give you an inning. We can throw. And it's just a testament to the mindset of this group. They just were not going to be denied.
Well, Erik, we're running out of time, so I got to move on to the NCAA tournament. But real quick beforehand, I just got to tell you how much I love the suicide squeezes. I mean, it's not just that you called one and it worked, but you called a second one and it scored 2 runs. It was amazing to watch. Please do more of that. That was awesome. But listen, as I said, the NCAA tournament's coming up. You got Oregon on Friday. What is it you feel as a team you guys need to most do to keep advancing in this thing?
We need to stick with the mindset that we have right now. We need to play this weekend exactly like we played last weekend. Free, mentally free, playground mentality. It's that perfect combination of focus but not being puckered up and too tight, and it's that perfect combination of being loose but not getting sloppy. And they just need to run around out there with a smile on their face. They know they've got house money. They know they're hot. They've caught that that lightning in a bottle, and we just need to roll with it and keep having fun playing baseball. But we're going to take the same approach. We're going to do whatever we have to do on Friday to come out on top and treat Friday like it's the only game of the weekend.
And in the last 30 seconds, Erik, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. Rutgers not making the tournament was a shocker. Iowa seemed like a team that had a good shot to do damage if they made the NCAA tournament. Is there something that you Big Ten coaches have been told that you can or should be doing differently, whether it's non-conference scheduling or something, so that more teams are seen in a more proper light by the selection committees?
No, we haven't been told anything formally. That was frustrating for all of us to see Rutgers and Iowa not be included, particularly, Rutgers with the magical season they had, record-setting year they had. I didn't realize until watching the selection show how small the bubble was. And, the committee, I would be remiss to say that they do a tremendous job, and they have a ridiculously hard job of when they're picking those final 4 teams, and you've got 12, 15 teams that are all deserving. Iowa had the best pitching in our conference, one of the top pitching staffs in the entire country in any other normal year where the bubble isn't so small. The Big Ten could be a 4-bid league with Iowa and Rutgers as well. But it was very clear that one of the main criteria this year was that non-conference strength of schedule. So, you saw it with the exclusion of Rutgers and a team like NC State that got even more national media attention than Rutgers. But they have a tough job, and it's disappointing for the Big Ten, obviously, for Rutgers not to be included, because I don't know that they could have done anything else. But I do know this: Coach Owens is one of the best, and he will have them right back.
Erik Bakich, Big Ten tournament champion head coach. More suicide squeezes and more Gatorade bats. Sound good?
Sounds great to me.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Erik.
Mike.
And great to be with Dr. James Borchers, the Big Ten's first chief medical officer, also a member of the Big Ten's Mental Health and Wellness Cabinet. First, Dr. Borchers, great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. Glad to join you.
Likewise. And so let me first hit on the role that you have. First ever chief medical officer of the Big Ten. Exactly, what you're doing in that position and what that's looked like for you.
Well, yeah, I think that this role is really one that is there to help provide some guidance to the conference office when areas around health, safety, and well-being come up for student athletes, and certainly around events, policies, procedures, those sorts of issues that arise. Also to make certain that there's a good conduit for information flow from our institutions in the Big Ten Conference, the medical professionals there, to the conference office, and to be a voice that can speak with our constituents, our athletic directors, senior women administrators, faculty, athletic representatives, chancellors, presidents, and really to support Commissioner Warren and his initiatives in the Big Ten to make certain that we are continually thinking about and addressing health, safety, and well-being for the conference.
And one of those initiatives, I mentioned that the Mental Health and Wellness Cabinet, which you're a part of. Talk to me about how that initiative is serving the universities.
Well, I think it's really an incredible initiative, and obviously Commissioner Warren and his thought about this cabinet and the chancellors and presidents convening the cabinet have really brought together amazing professionals from all institutions across the Big Ten Conference and its affiliates to really address issues around mental health and wellness. And I'm a big proponent of mental wellness and well-being. And so I think that what it has done is really galvanize the efforts across conferences. And rather than initiatives happening only on certain campuses, it's really opened the conference to those ideas. And that has really affected what is happening across our conference at our institutions, and sharing ideas and really thinking about the mental well-being of student athletes, but also of coaches and administrators and other constituents across our university's landscape.
And when we look at this initiative and how the universities are coming together, what have you seen is the value that it's providing to not just student athletes, but students across each university?
Well, I think anytime you have good collaboration, you have sharing of ideas, and those initiatives become much more global in their impact. And I think that's what we're really after. It's really trying to integrate what happens with student athletes, but also what happens just with students at universities in general. And there's no reason that those things shouldn't exist together. Certainly student athletes have unique circumstances that they deal with, but certainly thinking about what it means just to be a student at a Big Ten institution and how we can affect more than just student athletes, but the student populations on our Big Ten campuses is really important, and an initiative that I know this cabinet takes very seriously and addresses when they get together.
This cabinet came together just over a couple of years ago. What have you already observed is the most effective way to not just hear from each student, but to also reach out to them and make sure they know these resources are available?
Well, I think the communication from the conference and the ability to reach out, and not any different than what we see that students react to now. Certainly social media, although can be a challenge for mental wellness, is certainly a way to reach student athletes. But I think the ability to reach to them certainly through their athletic departments, through their coaches, the administrators there. But some of the initiatives, the apps, the Calm app, and other things that the Big Ten has really instituted have had wide-ranging effect on student athletes, and the amount of interaction is fantastic. But I think being able to listen to student athletes and then come together and hear what they're saying and really listen to our experts across campuses talk about the best ways to impact student athletes has been most effective.
And the last few years have been a challenge for everyone as we navigate the pandemic. So how have you had to adjust maybe certain tactics or even like the communication styles we talk about as really everyone's kind of adjusting sometimes to a new norm?
Yeah, I think it's been really difficult. I think we can't underestimate, certainly all of the challenges that have come over the last 24 months with the pandemic, not even really associated with the pandemic itself. I think certainly from our student athletes, we hear what they're saying. They felt more isolated during that time. They've obviously been challenged with circumstances that have been unusual to them. For many of them, for the first time ever, they had sport or the ability to interact with their teammates or coaches or other folks that are really important to their overall well-being impacted. And so we have to think about that, and we have to meet them where they're at. And I think listening has really been important during this time, and then taking what we hear and figuring out the best way to impact what's going on with student athletes and other constituents at our institutions in real time. And I think that's where the cabinet's been so helpful, is when you have those experts from all of the institutions that are part of the Big Ten coming together, the ideas that come forward and the ability to impact those things and those student athletes in real time becomes much more consistent across all of our institutions.
And how valuable was the timing of all of this, in particular that cabinet, because really kind of coming together a little bit before the pandemic, and how you were able to have things in place, like you were saying, very much a time of need for a lot of people?
Well, I think, Commissioner Warren's foresight to understand that, we address a lot in athletics around the physical health of athletes. And certainly we know that overall health and well-being is impacted by mental health, physical health, emotional health, and other influences. But I think his own experience, and then just being able to recognize early on the impact that mental wellness and well-being has on our overall ability to be well, but also for student athletes to be able to perform. And I think it was just, that ability to observe that that's going to be something that's critical regardless of what situation we're in. And then certainly when the pandemic came around and we were all put in positions that we had not been in before, and certainly facing a lot of challenges that we had not faced before, that became critical to being able to navigate those difficult times.
It always feels like, too, during those times that it really helps to know that you have a community, and you've hit on to know that you're not alone and isolated. And I think, too, that during these times, it can help almost knowing that other people are struggling too. And I think as really renowned athletes, Simone Biles, Naomi Osaka, just names that people recognize, faces they recognize, that they have their troubles too. And at times you need to step away from their sport to handle their mental health. Like you're saying, sometimes the mental just being so much more than the physical. What have you noticed as you speak to these student athletes that's the greatest message that really helps them?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to know it's okay to speak about this. I think student athletes feel very comfortable acknowledging when they have a physical issue. That's much more normal to them. But certainly we all are challenged not only with physical wellness, but with our mental wellness. And that's something that most people are not as comfortable speaking about. But I think that our student athletes are becoming more comfortable speaking about it, but also more comfortable speaking to each other about it and creating advocacy for each other about it, and realizing that it affects your overall wellness, but your ability to perform, your ability to be, the best version of yourself. And we also recognize that there is, critical outcomes that if we don't address this can occur. And so we want to make certain that we're staying vigilant. But I think that student athletes' voices are becoming louder in this area. They're becoming more confident in addressing this area. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's been a good model for all of us. And I think it's helped us to step back and understand that we have to address everything that's going on with an individual when we think about wellness and well-being, not just one particular part.
Hopefully today's conversation, just another step forward and another conversation people can see that we're having, and that help is out there. Doctor, thank you so much for the time today and your insight.
Thank you.
Michigan, Northwestern, Nebraska, Michigan State. Well, they've all been to the College World Series a few times in the world of softball, but Northwestern has now gone 6 times, or they're about to be in their 6th appearance, I should say, this upcoming week. It'll be their first one since 2007. We're glad to bring in the lovely Sammy Nettling to talk about this, and my goodness, what a comeback. They're down 5, backs against the wall. What did you make of that rally?
It was everything this super regional had promised us, right? You have the prolific, high-powered Sun Devil offense against one of, if not the best arms in the nation in Danielle Williams. But I think to your point, this just embodied what we've seen from the Wildcats all year long. They just scratch, fight, claw, everything, and just simply outlast their opponents.
And what do you make of Danielle Williams? I can't believe her arm didn't fall off with the amount of pitches she threw in the circle this past weekend.
She's just a fighter. She's a warrior. She has done this for so long now for this program. She's just been so consistent this year, and she just has so much confidence in what she's able to do on the mound, also because of who she's surrounded by in the rest of her dugout.
Does she have to do anything special this week in terms of resting to get ready?
I'm sure she hasn't done many arm circles since Sunday, but I really think for her and the rest of the Northwestern offense and defense, it's not about reps, right? You do reps for the sake of just routine and getting yourself ready, because that's what you're supposed to do before a game, but there's no more real physical adjustments that need to be made. It's just making sure that they continue to be mentally ready for every moment this week.
You mentioned the fact that it wasn't just her, but her team that was picking her up. How about Hannah Katie? 2 times she hits game-tying home runs in late innings in this Super Regional.
And not just what she did offensively, but 2 incredible defensive stops. In the 11th inning thriller, they had a runner on third base nearly every inning. and again, credit to Danielle Williams, but a credit to her defense. And across the board, 1 through 21, this Northwestern lineup was ready for every single moment this week in Tempe.
And so the Cats are now in the Women's College World Series. No matter what they do this week, what does this do for the brand of Northwestern softball?
This has reignited and really just kind of resurged that Northwestern is not just a Big Ten powerhouse, but is a national powerhouse. And we saw it. They were ranked basically the entire season, and rightfully so. And I think it's just going to be incredible, not just for the Big Ten, but again, to your point, continuing to get high-powered athletes into the program, into the university, and just continuing to compete for championships on a year-in and year-out basis.
Well, it should be super easy in their first game. The team they're playing has won 4 of the last 8 national titles.
Just, arguably the greatest offensive lineup we've ever seen in the history of collegiate softball. But, and I say this with a big caveat, this is a Northwestern team. They have played Oklahoma 6 times since 2019. They know how to go toe-to-toe with this team. And again, they have a Danielle Williams who will... All she needs to do is keep them within striking distance. She's going to give up the long ball, just like she did against the Sun Devils. I think that was a good matchup for them to get prepared for the Sooner lineup. And she just needs to keep runners off the bases when she does give up that long ball. And again, keep them in the game so that her offense can do what they've done all year long and just poke a little bit, right? They're not the high power. They're going to score 6 in 1 inning, but they're going to outlast you. They're going to continue to make adjustments at bat to at bat and really just are excited to compete against the Sooners.
And here they are. 8 teams remain, double elimination. If there's one key for them this upcoming week? What is it? What do they have to do?
Don't change anything because the stage is bigger. Continue to just focus and honor the moment, honor the stage by competing the way that you've done all year long.